Heading into day one of the 2018 NFL Draft, there was so much buzz, so much excitement, all this mystery. And I gotta say, day one lived up to every bit of that billing and then some. It was a fun, wild, crazy ride. It helps when you have a couple of notable quarterbacks. In this case, you had 5 of them, and you're talking about throughout the night where those guys are going to end up. It helps when you have teams making deals and making big deals. Man, when trades happen in the NFL Draft, it just helps the viewing experience at home exponentially. It absolutely does. It absolutely does. And it was a wild, crazy, and fun night. And the great thing is, we got 2 more days to go. That's awesome. But anyways, day one is in the books, so it's time for me to share with you my perspective on the winners and losers of day number 1 of the 2018 NFL Draft. Now, before I get into the winners and the losers, I want to talk about some of the biggest surprises of the night. One of the big surprises to me was Tremaine Edmunds and Derwin James dropping to pick 16 and 17 respectively. These were 2 guys that I thought could go top 10. These were 2 guys that I had mocked in my top 10. These are 2 guys that I had as top 5 players overall in the entire draft. And when you have this many quarterbacks, in this case we had 4 quarterbacks go in the top 10, what that does is it bumps other players down the board. And as a result, guys that had no business being there ended up being there. It happened last year when you had Trubisky and then a little bit later Mahomes and Watson go off the board. It drops guys like Jonathan Allen and Malik Hooker. A little before that, you could say Marshawn Lattimore. It did it this year again with Tremaine Edmunds and Derwin James. So the Bills and the Chargers have to be incredibly happy with how things played out. I was really surprised that the Bucs passed on Derwin James at pick 12. I thought they were going to take him at 7. I'd been perfectly fine with them taking him at 7. Then they trade down. Then Derwin is on the board at 12. And they went with a big beast run-stuffing nose tackle in Vita Vea. It's not that that was a bad pick. It was just a legit surprise. It's like a guy you could have taken at 7, you're in position to take at 12, and you went in a different direction. I was also really surprised that the Patriots invested the 31st overall pick on Sony Michel, the running back from Georgia. This was a guy that was talk about he could go late round 1, and then late you got the breaking news on top of the injury history he already has, talking about bone-on-bone condition in one of his knees, which is the same thing a couple of years ago that caused Jay Ajayi to drop to the 5th round. Now the Patriots are sitting there and taking him at pick 31. I was stunned that they took a running back in the 1st round. Not saying it was a bad choice ultimately, just again, it was a surprise. I was absolutely floored that Will Hernandez dropped entirely out of round 1. To me, this was an example of some teams reaching for inferior talents and some teams overthinking things. Will Hernandez will end up playing like a first-round pick in the NFL level. I was stunned that that happened. The Saints trading up from 27 to 14 and giving up a 2019 first-round pick in the process. You're thinking, this could be Lamar Jackson. This could be Lamar Jackson. Doesn't matter what Sean Payton said about he didn't like any of the quarterbacks in this draft. Doesn't matter this, that. They just missed out on Mahomes last year. They're going to move up and they're going to take Marcus Davenport. I think a lot of people were floored by this one. You traded up from 27 to 14, gave up a first-round pick next year to get a raw edge rusher. This feels an awful lot like the old Jags-Ravens deal from several years back, with the Jags making that big move up, I think it was from 26 to 8 or 9 to get Derek Harvey from Florida. I'm usually not a fan of making that type of big-time move up the board if it's not for a quarterback or some other type of truly high-impact player. We'll see how it works out. And then at the tail end of round 1, Rashad Penny going 27 to the Seahawks. Terrell Edmunds. If you didn't see Penny coming, I don't blame you. I had a second-round grade on him. I didn't anticipate him ultimately going in round 1 and being the second running back off the board, but he was. But Terrell Edmunds? He went 12 picks, after his damn brother. I had a 4th-round grade on him. I think a lot of other people did. Athletic, yes. Can he play? I don't know about all that. And here are the Steelers massively reaching on a guy. That was an absolute surprise, even with some of the reports talking about, watch out for a guy like Terrell Edmunds sneaking into the bottom of round 1. You're like, okay, it could happen, but I don't really believe you. Well, it did. And consider me officially shook on that one. My goodness. Now let's transition to the winners. Obviously, Ryan Shazier. It was a moment. It was a great moment. It was an inspirational type of moment to see him struggle to walk, but be able to do so across the stage and be there to deliver the Steelers' first-round pick. I mean, that's a real feel-good moment. It doesn't really get much better than that. And considering where he's been to where he already is, he's going to get where he wants to go. And I'm not going to be one to sit there and tell him he can never play in the league again. It seems ambitious, ridiculous, crazy. Why would you want to? But in that type of situation, you need something high to shoot for. Shoot for the damn stars, Shazier. I got your back every step of the way. That was an awesome moment. Baker Mayfield has to be a winner here. A year ago, we're talking about him running from the damn cops. And last night, he went number 1 overall in an NFL draft. A 6-foot quarterback went number 1 overall with off-the-field concerns. Clearly, a massive victory for Baker Mayfield. The New York Jets trading up a while back to go from 6 to 3. A lot of people, understandably so, are saying, why would they trade up there? Maybe they're assuming quarterbacks go 1, 2, 3, so they'll get a choice of one of the 3, unless they have the same grade on 3 of them. That's a really odd strategy. Man, it worked out brilliantly. Yes, Mayfield went 1, but Barkley goes 2, and all of a sudden, Sam Darnold's sitting there at 3. The Jets were able to get the guy that for a year a lot of people assumed would ultimately end up being the number 1 overall pick, and even up to the 11th hour and 59th minute before the draft, people were still thinking that it was going to be Sam Darnold. The Jets got him at 3. That's insane. That was a huge win for them. The Chargers, they just sat there, twiddled their thumbs, and down comes a future Pro Bowler in Derwin James to pick 17. They finally got the replacement for Eric Weddle, and they got a stud. He might end up being better. The Buffalo Bills, they traded up for Josh Allen, but in doing so, only had to go up to 7. So, yes, they had to give up some other picks with both of their trades up, but they didn't have to give up any draft capital for 2019. They still were ultimately able to keep both of their first-round picks this year. To me, getting the number 1 quarterback in this draft, and along with Lamar Jackson, the quarterback that easily has the most upside in this draft, and you got him at 7, all the other stuff aside. And then to have Tremaine Edmunds fall and have the gumption to go up from 22 to 16 to go get him, and again, not have to give up any picks in 2019. I thought the Bills did a masterful job of working the draft on Thursday night. The Packers, I'm not sure if I'm as huge on Jair Alexander as others might be, and I still look at it as, hey, I would have taken Derwin James maybe at 14. But the Packers bumped down from 14 to 27, then come up to 18 to take the guy they probably very well had in mind they were going to want anyways in Jair Alexander, and in the process got a 2019 first-round pick for doing so. That's how you work the draft. And then the Baltimore Ravens, they moved down from 16 to 22, then to 25 to get the draft's top tight end. And while a lot of people are kind of questioning that one, they're looking at him to give some type of Todd Heat type of impact. They got him at 25. And then to come back up, where the Eagles were obviously desperate to get out of that pick at 32, that you didn't really have to give up shit to do it. The Ravens gave up their one of the second-round picks, and then swapped order with the Eagles in round 4, which only was like an 8-pick difference, to get Lamar Jackson, who could end up being the best damn quarterback out of all of them that was taken in round 1. The Ravens got him at 32. Ozzy's last first-round pick may very well end up going down as one of his best of all time. Think about that for a second. Now the losers. The Pittsburgh Steelers, Terrell Edmunds at 28. My God. I understand he's an athlete, but can he play? I understand he comes from great bloodlines. His dad was a former multiple-time Pro Bowler at tight end for the Dolphins, and Terrell Edmunds. His brother just got drafted 16, but you took him at 28. Whereas Tremaine was an absolute steal at 16. You massively reached at 28. And what is he going to do? You better hope to God he's a Keanu Neal type of guy and he proves a lot of people wrong, because otherwise, looking at it based off of history, it's another indication that the Steelers don't know how the hell to evaluate defensive backs. I also look at the Seattle Seahawks. Yes, they traded down. They were able to recoup a third-round pick by moving down from 18 to 27. But they still didn't get a second-round pick that they really, frankly, needed. And they overdrafted a guy yet again. Look, I like Rashard Penny. I had a second-round grade on him. He was a top 4 or 5 running back in this class for me. I felt like he was getting slept on a little bit. That's true. But I find it really hard to believe that he was ultimately going to go in round 1. And again, the Seahawks have a bad history in recent years of massively overdrafting guys that they happen to like early in the draft. It's one thing if you like him, and you just hope it works out, because if it does, ultimately at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. But the problem is that in a number of these cases, the Seahawks do this, and it doesn't really work out. So at some point in time, it does matter. There were better players on the board at this point. The Seahawks should have either taken one of those better players, or they should have traded back completely out of round 1 to get some more draft pick capital that, again, they really needed. The New Orleans Saints, to me, giving up a future first-round pick for a middle of round 1 non-quarterback is crazy. That is absolutely crazy. Especially when you could have potentially done this and nobody would have flinched or batted an eye if you took a Lamar Jackson and started thinking about the future of the Saints organization for the next 10 to 15 damn years. And the way it ended up playing out, they could have stayed put at 27 and taken Lamar Jackson anyways. And it kind of comes down to this whole thing. Are the Saints really a player away? Some smart mouse might sit there and say, well, they're a safety that could tackle away. Well, Marcus Davenport ain't playing safety. And is he really the guy when you're one player away? Is he really ready to contribute day 1 in the NFL? If that's your logic, that you felt you were a player away, then why wouldn't you go up and get somebody like a Derwin James, who would be a massive contributor from day number 1? I don't care what the hell you have at safety. He's better than what the Saints have at safety. If you're going to make this deal up, it needed to be Tremaine Edmunds or Derwin James. Especially James. I just don't get it. And the other big losers of the night to me, oh, you know it. Rocking the orange. The skid marks, baby. The Cleveland Browns. Woo! For months, there's been debate about who they would take at number 1. Which quarterback is it going to be coming off of a historically bad 0-16 season? Well, they didn't take the best quarterback in the draft at number 1, I assure you of that. They took a 6-foot quarterback with off the field issues. And as much as everybody wants to talk about Josh Allen being a major outlier and that him overcoming accuracy issues would be an exception to the rule, why are more people then not talking about Baker Mayfield being a massive outlier, talking about 6-foot quarterbacks not traditionally making it, most certainly not making it if they're drafted in round 1? I will concede Josh Allen is a major projection and a major outlier. But I don't give a shit what you say. Baker Mayfield is 2. And then to go to 4, where there has to be, you would imagine, some type of trade activity, some type of something. And the Browns dug in their heels and it looks like asked for too much. And then turn around and took a 5'10 corner at number 4. I like Denzel Ward. I don't love Denzel Ward as a prospect. You passed on him for Bradley Chubb. You passed on Bradley Chubb for him. It's so confusing, it's got me tongue-tied. Understand the thought of, well, in 4 or 5 years, do you want to invest money in two big-time star defensive ends and they're in one area with Garrett and Chubb, or do you want to sit there and spread that out a little bit with Ward? I'm sorry. You're trying to get better now and build a championship team. Bradley Chubb gets you closer to a championship team than Denzel Ward. Period. You worry about the future in the future. Right now, Bradley Chubb's the better player and projects to be the better NFL player. And all along, the Browns didn't get any additional draft pick capital in 2018, nor did they get any for next year in 2019, where that fourth pick could have potentially done that for them. They didn't trade back up into the bottom of round number 1 with the 3 second-round picks that they're still holding on to that might have allowed them to get somebody that was falling down the board a little bit that could have sat there and made an impact for them. Like, to me, I would have had less of a problem with the Browns trading up into the tail end of round 1 to get Rashard Penny, because at least I can say they're getting them and have the ability to have them under that fifth-year option at a decent cap figure for the running back position. And I don't know about you, but this sure reminds me quite a bit about 2014. No, they're not totally comparable as players, but there are a couple of similarities. Undersized quarterbacks with off-the-field questions with Baker Mayfield and Johnny Manziel. And then taking a corner. Once it was Justin Gilbert and now it's Denzel Ward. Gilbert had off-the-field issues that Denzel Ward doesn't, but somewhat similar in some ways in terms of athletic packages. And it just goes to speak to, just because, that's an old regime, this is a new regime. It just feels like SOSDD with the skid mark. Same old shit, different day. You don't take the best quarterback in the draft at number 1, and even if you massively disagree with me about Josh Allen, that is perfectly fine. Then take Sam Darnold. I at least give John Dorsey this. He wasn't clearly afraid of what anybody thinks, because you would in no way, shape, or form make those 2 picks at 1 and 4 if you gave a crap what everybody else thought. And that I respect. And ultimately, he will be judged based off of the results of those 2 guys and this draft class. But I don't feel like this draft was handled as effectively as it could have been for the Cleveland Browns, or as profitably as it could have been for the Cleveland Browns. And in particular, I still stand by it. Mayfield will not be the best quarterback out of this draft, and they did not take the best defensive player available at number 4 and passed up potentially on the opportunity to trade down and get additional draft pick capital for 2019. It's not one of these raging go off on a long tangent rant type of things with the Browns. I just happen to disagree with them, and I felt like day 1 could have been executed a little bit better. I'm just saying. Now, for my best picks in round 1, the Jets, trading up from 6 to 3, getting Sam Darnold, who they had to reasonably believe might not be there. The Colts, trading back from 3 to 6 and getting the number 1 player in this draft in Quentin Nelson. They got 3 second-round picks to take the best player in the draft, 3 picks afterwards, so they even save themselves some damn salary cap space. All the while, they get a massive upgrade immediately to their protection for Andrew Luck and their blocking in the running game. How in the hell are the Colts not big winners here? It was a phenomenal pick. For the Buffalo Bills, if you're an upset Bills fan, part of the Bills Mafia, and you're having trouble swallowing Josh Allen at number 7, look at it this way. Tremaine Edmonds, from an athletic standpoint, could have potentially been the 7th pick in this draft in terms of talent level. So if it makes you feel better, flip Tremaine Edmonds to 7, put Josh Allen at number 16, and maybe that makes this draft a little bit more palpable to you. But ultimately, the Bills and what they did here, yeah, they had to give up the 2 second-round picks, but they gave up nothing of other significance or note the rest of 2018, gave up nothing in 2019, and were able to keep their 2 first-round picks and trade up from both of those positions to get 2 potential stud superstars. You got to love what the Bills did. The Chargers, they put people in prison for a long time for the type of crime that the Chargers were just going to be able to get away with Derwin James at freaking 17. Are you insane? And then Ozzie Newsome in his last draft, getting the draft's top tight end, and then following that up by having to give up basically not a damn thing to move up to the last pick of round 1 to get Lamar Jackson, the quarterback of the future, and for Ravens fans, hopefully sooner rather than later future, for that organization. To me, those are the best picks that stand out, with an honorable mention to my Bears taking Roquan Smith at number 8. They got that impact inside linebacker that they desperately freaking needed. I'm pumped about that. Absolutely pumped. Let's go! We got 2 more days of the draft. I'll be back to talk more draft-related stuff over the next couple of days, so check it out. Stay tuned.